And so this is using a AMM as an example. Sorry, it's a Ethereum AMM as an example. And so, what does a good campaign do? And so a good campaign gets the users in the community familiar with how the product works. Because at the end of the day, we're building products. We want to get them out there as much as possible, and we want people to iterate on it. So we want to learn about what's working, what's not working. So the number one goal of a sort of go-to-market campaign should be to get as many users familiar with the app. And then to the extent you can drive on-chain usage, that's the best. So even if it's just on testnet, that's great, because you're going to learn a lot about, what are the points of friction, what's working, what's not working in the product. And then you're going to learn a lot about, you're going to get a lot of user testing out of it as well. And so you drive on-chain usage, you get some metrics now, you can take those to investors, you get some user testing, so you get the product better. And ideally, those on-chain numbers just keep going up as you're going, because you're iterating and you're making the product better as you're moving. And this is great for even just testnet. And so, user testing, you're going to get a little bit about what works well in the product, what doesn't work well. I love using these programs for testing edge cases. So like, let's walk through this example campaign and talk through like what the learnings can be. So you're going to have someone in the app, you're going to give these instructions to your community. You're going to say, hey, this is the current quest that we have, or the marketing campaign. There may be rewards for engaging in this campaign at a later date. And so, the instructions you give the community are connect your wallet to the application. And then the next thing you want them to do is to get testnet USDC and ETH. And then the next thing that you want them to do is sort of like the first step in the user flow. So I always start with like, hey, what is the first thing a user will be doing when engaging with this application? In this case, we're assuming there's zero liquidity TVL. So you have to first add liquidity to the USDC ETH pool. And then what's sort of like the next step that's possible after that? The ability to buy and sell assets in and out of the pool. And so now you're basically walking users through the flow from sort of A to Z. You're learning about the points of friction. And the next thing that you might want to do is you can have people just buy 1 USDC and sell 0.1 ETH. Or you can use this as an opportunity to test different edge cases. As engineers, sometimes we have rounding errors. And so, one of the things you might want to test is just all the edge cases for different numbers. And so you might want to give them a set of edge cases to test, so you can see how do the boundaries of the contracts or the boundaries of the code work. And so now we're getting a combination of user testing, and we're getting a combination of bug testing as well. And let me walk through this and talk about, like, as the founder, what are you going to learn when people go through this? And so, the first thing that you might learn is, hey, some of my users just don't have a wallet. So how do I make that easier? How do I solve that problem? Is it just better messaging on the website, or do I want to give them an embedded wallet? Is that secure enough? Is that not secure enough? It sounds like it's more usable. So you'll be able to get all these learnings from that. Get testnet USDC and ETH. Where are the users going to get the tokens or crypto they need to interact with my app? Should I build an embedded solution so they can buy within the app? Adding liquidity, people don't know how that works. Should I have an explainer in the app or a walkthrough that explains how that works? So I need some videos for that, etc. So when you build your base case that you want the user to go through, it's a great opportunity to just learn from the user perspective, because it's, if you're building stuff, it's so hard to see it from the other side. But when you can use these campaigns to get a diverse set of users hitting against the platform, you can learn about, who's your target market, who's just not your target market, which different campaigns are working, driving the right type of user to your platform, which ones are not, where are people getting stuck in the platform, where's my conversion rate going from 90% to 10%, can I improve anything there? So these campaigns are not only good for growing community, but you can sort of supercharge how much you're learning about your product, and you can sort of improve and iterate on it really quickly. Okay, so we talked a lot about like ideas, tools, and now like how do we think about this and measure it? And so this is where sort of a framework comes in. So we talked a little bit about best practices, ideas, tools, things like that. And the way I like to look at this is sort of like a marketing calendar. And so when you have this quest or activities that you want people to do, you're going to be making announcements. Hey, we're opening this campaign, and this is going to be the first in the series. We're going to have one every week. And so every week, your team has time to prepare an announcement about what you want users to do that week. You're going to have enough time for your engineers to implement anything they need to implement. Maybe this is tied to your development calendar. So maybe you have releases every 2 weeks. You have things that you want people to try out. And so you're going to put out a campaign announcements every 2 weeks, or maybe 2 days before your release. And you're going to get people ready to engage with your application in one way or another. So if you can have these around major feature releases, better. If they're more minor feature releases, it's okay. Even a mix is good because you can keep people engaged and build the repetition of getting people trained to come to your application every week, engage with each other, drop some memes in the chat, and play around with the product. And so marketing calendars are good, drum beats are good. And the more you can do, the better. Some people just do one. And the problem when you just do one is sometimes an announcement takes time to mature. And so like in our platform, we'll announce something is open or live. And maybe some people come in right away, but really when you make an announcement, it can take like a week to mature. And so you may want to announce something and then keep repeating it. And sometimes you announce something and then it takes like a week for people to pass it around to their friends and let them know. You might want to pre-announce something to warm everyone up and then announce it so they put it on their calendar and they're ready. But that's something to think about, is when you announce something, nothing might happen, and that's okay. It's okay for nothing to happen right away, but you need to sit on it for at least a week just to make sure that, just to see how things mature. A lot of times we have people announce things and nothing happens and they panic, which is what you don't want to do. But you might want to get out there and talk to users and see, hey, what did you think of this announcement? Is it exciting? Is it not exciting? Oh, it sounds like it just takes some time to go buy some Bitcoin to get it into your wallet, and so that's fine. So maybe you want to do more marketing around getting users through that part of the funnel. So important to sort of like stick with your thesis. Don't panic if nothing happens right away, but use it as an opportunity to learn more, gather more information, and figure out how you can do better as you're moving forward. And when we're looking at an announcement calendar, the number one thing that matters is user numbers. How many users in the community, how many users in the app? And so if you're doing a sale, you're doing an airdrop, you're going to be doing an announcement every week, every month. And at point of launch, that's when you're going to want your target user numbers. So I'll give you some heuristics for what's good and what are good user numbers. And if it's a lot bigger than what you're expecting for launch, that's okay. But I think it's a good target. It's a good healthy target, and it's what's worked for a lot of our customers that we've launched so far. So if you can target, for example, 10 to 20K at launch, and let's say it's real users, not gamed, then that's sort of a good North Star to hold. And so the game becomes, what is my North Star KPI and how many users do I need at each stage to increase in order to get to that KPI? And so for some of you, you might want to set this target user number at 1,000. You might want to say it's 1,000 in my application, and then I want 10,000 in my community. But you want to know what those numbers are so you can see how your conversions are working. And so in this example, last bull market, peak bull market, our customers were bringing in about 50,000 users into the sales. This was no bots, like real people. And so if your target is 50,000, then you might want to see, how many announcements do you need to make? So like in your first 3 announcements, you might see that like, okay, it's increasing by 1,000, our user numbers increasing by another 1,000. And so we might want to increase our announcement calendar. So we might want to delay launch a little bit and slot in a few more announcements of activities that we want to do, and sort of like take a little bit more time, figure out what's working, what's not working. Sometimes you'll see these numbers go really fast. So sometimes people announce a Discord, the project's pretty mature, and so they'll bring in about 10,000 users per hour into the Discord. And so if stuff like that happens, set your targets higher. Or maybe, that's the initial bump because you put in a lot of effort. People are waiting for you to launch or announce something. Now that your socials are open or your Discord's open, everyone piled into that. So maybe you're looking at incremental growth. So, maybe 5 or 10% growth every month is considered good for you. So again, there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone's at a different stage. You just have to set a target KPI at launch and then figure out how many announcements, what's your announcement calendar, what's working for each announcement, what's not, and then is my user number increasing sufficiently to get there. So this is how to stay calm and stay rational as you're going towards launch, and to make sure you're taking sort of a methodical approach to getting to the numbers that you need. So I'm going to go into tokenomics, and before I get into tokenomics, some of the projects that we've seen execute really well have had different community groups. And so they have groups of folks, for example, that are more technical, that are, setting up nodes, for example. So you might have folks that are just running a lot of nodes on testnet. They're expecting some sort of airdrop at launch. You might have folks that are less technical. So they're there for the community. They're there for the memes. So your community, as you grow, might sort into different groups. And this is a very, very good thing. Because now, if you're opening up a sale later, you can do different sales for each of these groups. And again, you now have a marketing drumbeat of different sales that you're opening, and the marketing is going to compound on itself. More people will hear about it. More people will tell their friends with every announcement, and then you can do a public sale at the end and capture a lot more users. And so that's sort of like one thing that could be super, super helpful. When thinking about tokenomics, each of those groups can basically get slotted a different allocation. For example, if it's just airdrop, but if you're doing a sale, they can maybe get slotted into different rounds with different incentives. So if they're running nodes, maybe they get more tokens. If they're normal community members, maybe you're going for very large numbers, but they get smaller amounts per user. And so if you can segment your community into different groups, that's usually a net good. The downside there is it's a little bit more to manage, but that's usually a net good, and it shows that you have a mature community with different people supporting the project in different ways. And so, there's always more technical people, there's always less technical people. There's going to be people with too much capital that just want to invest. And so it's good to sort of like curate these groups if you have the resources and to cater to them in the tokenomics. I'm going to start with, what is the number one thing that people screw up? And I think the number one thing that people screw up here is not necessarily respecting the community enough. And if you think about, again, just backing into what makes Bitcoin great, what makes Bitcoin great is that a large, majority of the supply is community owned. And a lot of, all the miners are basically community run, et cetera. And there's no sort of like insiders that are profiting. And so when I'm feeling lost in what direction to go, I always, again, back into like Bitcoin values and then work backwards from that. So in your tokenomics, the number one thing is going to be respecting your community. And so, how to think about distribution. If it's about respecting community, you're going to want to be able to communicate to your community that, hey, over 50% of the supply is going to go to the community in some way or the other. It doesn't have to be an airdrop. It can manifest in different ways. It can manifest in community bounties. It can manifest in salaries to ambassadors in different countries that are working to raise awareness for the project. But the number one thing that matters is giving a majority of the tokens to the community. And then tokens for operation, tokens for the team, tokens for investors. And I'll give some heuristics. Actually, I can talk about it now if you guys want to take notes. Tokens for team, 10% is low, 30% is on the high end, 20% is generally in the middle. Tokens for investors, 10% each round is very standard. Again, higher is more aggressive in favor of the investor, and then lowers more aggressive in favor of the team, founders, community. Community always 50% or more. And then you're going to want some allocation for operations. And this can be 10 to 30%. I'm going to give an example token table at the end if you guys want to screenshot that as well. Oh, here it is, actually. So here's an example token table. And this should add up to 100%. Maybe it doesn't. 40. It should. And so team 30%. So again, more aggressive to the team. One pitfall to think about is, what if one of the founders leaves, which always happens. And so that's something to sort of think about. So do you want, founder tokens to vest over time? Do you want it to be milestone based? So, hey, every additional round that we do, founder's going to get a little bit extra tokens out of the treasury. And so again, something to have a discussion with your team about early on is like, hey, it happens a lot. It's normal. Someone gets bored, they leave. Maybe it's too stressful, they leave. And so how do you account for that at the beginning? And it always feels worst when you're, one of three founders and you're still running full steam and everyone else has the same allocation. So think of it from that perspective and have that conversation up front. Investors, you're going to want to plan for, maybe 2 or 3 rounds. I'm sure Bitcoin Startup Lab has good advice around the right planning for that. Probably a lot better than me, but I try, for myself, plan 2 to 3 rounds and what allocation do I expect to give at each one and at what valuation. And then community, in this case, targeting over 50%. So this gets to 55%. So you can see it's sort of a mix. So this is saying whatever's in the treasury goes to community because it's token owned, token governed. 2% airdrop, which is very standard. 5% is going to go to a community sale. One thing to think about here is know what your token price is going to be at first fundraise. What's your expected token price valuation? Maybe do 2 fundraises before you do a public token sale. So what is the token price valuation? And how do you do a community sale where the valuation isn't too high? So a lot of projects today, they're at a 3 billion valuation, all privately funded. They can't do a token sale now because no one's going to buy at a 3 billion valuation. And so do that planning up front, and have some sort of idea for what's a good valuation, what's not. And always better to be less greedy than more greedy when you're, early stage. Just be humble and sober about where your metrics are and where you are. Developer grants, that fits in the community bucket. Sale fits in the community bucket. Airdrop, community, treasury can be interpreted as community or not, but in this case, I just have it as community. And then operational stuff that can go to the operational company, or it can go to market making, exchange listings. Again, something to budget for and think about as you're moving forward.